Hello and welcome everyone to Ananke's Literature Festival. I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome my honored guests at the 7th edition. And we are here to pay tribute to an icon of Pakistani publishing industry, Miss Zuhra Karim. Uh, with me, we have Nyla Daud, Naheed Malik, Sabyn Javeri, Uzma Mazhar, and Zeenia Shaukat. Each of these amazing speakers will talk about their experiences at She and with the icon that was Ms. Zuhra Karim. A little bit about She Magazine. She Magazine is a prominent English language women's lifestyle and fashion publication with deep historical roots in Pakistan, alongside various international editions. Uh, so, with this, I will begin because I don't want to do an extended version of an introduction, because I want all the speakers to talk about what she represents and what this magazine has been for not just its readers, but for all of us as well. And I begin with Nyla Daud. Hi Nyla, how are you?
Thank you, Sabine. Thank you for inviting me to this panel. And it's good since I've been out of the She team for a number of years. Actually, ever since Zora was, when she became sick and all that. So I was, very upset that because we had a team then. Anyway, and I was very excited to come back to She once again after all these years. And let me introduce myself that I walked into She quite by accident or by default. My sister had a small, tiny exhibition of home craft in Lahore, and I just, wrote a tiny news once with a photograph, and at randomly, I posted it to She. It got printed the next month, and I got a check of 500 rupees, which was, 1988 it was a big amount. And I got a call from Zuhra Karim. Oh no, I got a call from Muniza Hashmi, who was then the Lahore editor. And she said, Zora has told me that you must come and work with me, and I'm the editor. I said, all right, I'll come and, meet you I went to Muniza's Model Town house, and there and then I was appointed the assistant editor of She Magazine, Lahore Bureau, no office, no nothing. And it was very exciting for me because I had never worked before. I had been writing off and on for publication, but it was nothing much, nothing mentionable. This was my first official job. I was very excited. And then Muniza and I made a team, and Muniza actually trained me. She would send me to do news months and interviews and this and that. And then finally, when after a couple of years, Muniza became the GM Lahore television station. Then she resigned from She, and I became the Lahore editor. Then I worked for I don't know how many years for She, and it was the most enjoyable experience because you all might not be knowing, but the 80s were a period when women in Pakistan were coming into professions, um, unheard of, like women architects, women uh, bakery business, women furniture designers, lots of things. So, and Zora, I must say, she was that sort of person that who would, she was not a feminist in the strict sense of the word, but she was a feminist in her ideas of what she done, not undercover, very openly, but in a very subtle and polite and ethical manner. She was not that sort of fighter going out on the streets and shouting slogans. So we started this Woman of Substance column. And I did so many women of substance. Saida Bandal, who later became the principal of NCA as the first woman architect of Lahore. And then there was Rosala Rehman, who started InDesign, her furniture business in Lahore. And those were days when women were, I mean, they were doctors and there were some engineers too, but women were not going into big businesses run by themselves. And Zora made us, sort of highlight those women, which I think was a big thing. I myself would go carrying my, I mean, I'm talking of ages, carrying my hand portable recorder and go and interview these women. I would be so surprised. Okay, what are women doing? We are breaking into new fields. And another thing, before I know I'm taking a lot of time, but I'll also tell you, though, when I started working for She magazine in 1988, there were no computers. I used to write by hand all these interviews. I used to then pay my husband's PA, kept my free time here. He would type them on a typewriter, one of those old things. I would get the long sheets back and I would put them in an envelope, go to drive to the PIA office in Flatties Hotel in Lahore. It was very easy to drive from Jail Road to Connect College to Flatties. We hardly took any time. And post it. I don't remember how much money I paid. It's just, I think, two figure hoega koi. Or then they would get it, and this is how we, communicated. And then telephone was our media of communication. And from that, then I came to finally the computer came. I got myself a desktop, that huge thing. Then finally laptop. But what I really miss is that there were some articles which uh, I don't. I would have liked to have a record, but they cannot be traced because even the magazine did not have, I think, computerization then. And there's no way I can, there were some articles that I would like Sange Meel. I did Sange Meel is a publishing house in Lahore, very famous, started years ago, and I did Sange Meel's history then. Niaz Ahmed Saab and his son now, his grandson, is making a book and he wants that interview in it. I can't trace it. And so I'm very sorry for that period. But then later on, I have a lot of material on my laptop now also. But I think not the initial years, which is a pity. So that's how I began She Magazine, doing Women of Substance and those little news
Yeah.
months. Anything, actually, the directions were that anything that women were doing,
Yeah.
because we were opening out there.
Yes.
My introduction.
Naheed, yeah, please go on.
Yeah. So, okay, my story, which she started in 1993. I was 22 years old. I had a 1-year-old, 1.5-year-old son. Um, Never worked again, but always written. And I used to be a subscriber to She Magazine. And I was always a reader, of course, so that was there. Um, and I saw an ad in the print issue about an editorial assistant or assistant editor, one of those positions. And I applied for that. Miss Karim called me in, asked me to write an article on, I was moving houses, so okay, write about that. I sat down there, wrote it. She said she loved it and offered me a job. It was as simple as that. I told her I've got this baby, and she's like, bring him in when you don't have anybody to look after him, and just work the hours that you want to. And again, I find this so uh, strange, all those years ago. Now we hear about flexi hours and work from home and, special concessions for mothers. And she did it then in 1993. So I owe my career to Miss Kareem. Simple as that. If she hadn't been there for a 22-year-old who had never worked and who had no clue what she wanted out of life, I wouldn't be, you know, I wouldn't have done all that I've done in the past, 3 decades and doing what I'm doing now. So, as Nyla said, Miss Kareem was a feminist. Yeah, she may not have gone out on roads and, um, taken part in all these processions or whatever in the 80s, but she was a true feminist. She really gave a platform to women from everywhere. I remember Mrs. Francis, her PA. again, another woman who had never worked. And she was given this opportunity by Ms. Karim. She had 5 children. Again, going through all that we all do when we have young children and a family, and our culture, which sort of tells us you can't have both. Still now, we hear that. And uh, being given that opportunity by another woman, it's amazing. I think all of us at some level, we owe something to she, and we owe something to Ms. Karim for building our lives.
Sorry, absolutely, Naheed. Naheed, especially when, it was that era when, you know, uh, everyone used to pit women against women. It's not like that. Well, not, I mean, it's not 100%, that we are free from all these shackles of women being pitted against one another. But, she was indeed a trailblazer, when you're talking about her asking you to bring in your kid. So, yeah.
And I did, so I have these amazing memories of then being with she for the next 3 years. Um, and she kept her promise, each time. So I found a daycare center for my son. And then he started nursery and all of that. But you have issues when you have a young family. And I did bring in my son to work, in that office. And I have this very distinct memory. So, Nyla, you were not in Karachi office, but Uzma, or some of you may remember, when we put the magazine to bed, there was no technology. So we had those transparencies and the light boxes, and we would literally have to go through every single page to see if there's no mistake. And those were like 2, 3 days when we used to work late. And when I say late, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, or something like that. And that's when I would, bring my kid over, and he would bring those little toys. And one day, Miss Kareem sort of slept on one of those toys, and she said, "Your child is going to kill me." So I have this distinct memory of, that. But still, I mean, she was super, super amazing. She was, she had this image of being very a taskmaster and quite harsh in a way. But to me, she was a mother figure. She just understood what a Pakistani woman from, who wants more from life, but is constrained by the culture, and
That
how to
way,
help her.
Naheed, that way, I think she was remarkable. Like at my generation, even to an extent, your generation, they were brought and educated with the sole idea of getting married, and starting a family, except a few. So for me, as educated with the sole idea that I was one day going to get married. I mean, that was all the aim in life.
Yeah.
But because I met Zuhra Karim came into my life, I found another purpose. I mean, she was the first person who gave me the pride of seeing my byline in print, which is a great thing for somebody who had never thought of a career.
Yeah.
So that way, she was an innovator.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then
True.
and the way that she ran the magazine and the way she trained us, those early years of training in proofreading and editing, and that is something we still use. I think all of us at some level we still use that. And she was a hard taskmaster when it came to that.
Yes.
She had like grammar and spellings, and the way heading should be, and intros and all of that was my.
I think,
We
Naheed,
really went through that.
yeah.
Uzma and I worked together as well, because she would.
Yeah. You, maybe it's my connection. There was a little bit of lag.
There was.
Uh, yeah. But I would like to go to you, Sabine, and ask you about your experience. I'm suddenly reminded of The Devil's Wear Prada as well.
Very
Uh,
recently. Yeah.
yeah. So Sabine, tell us.
Yeah, I think by the time I came around, so I think, I think I was probably the third generation of the she workers, not generation as an age-wise, but, as in the kind of workers that Mrs. Karim groomed. And I think by the time I came around, maybe she had run out of patience. I don't know. But
That
I
goes
actually,
for me as well, Sabine. The two Sabines.
Well, she could never
yeah.
tolerate, fools.
Well, I wouldn't say that I was a fool,
No,
but like,
I don't mean
but I
that.
think,
Like,
uh,
I mean, for me, I thought she was, she wanted sensible people around, and because you were younger, that's why you got the butt of it.
no, I think it wasn't that. I think it was also because probably you and Naheed wanted to be there. Like you said, that you grew up with this sense that, marriage was the ultimate destiny. Naheed was at a place where she wanted to have a career and also wanted to have a family. I think I grew up with a different sensibility, perhaps in the 90s, and I joined in the late 90s. And I actually didn't want to be there. And I was forced to intern there by my father. So I had just done my BA from St. Joseph's, and I was looking forward to just relaxing, or I thought, oh, I'm going to go abroad, or, whatever. Or maybe work in some fancy ad agency or something like that. And then my father, after 3 days of sleeping late, was like, इसका कुछ करना पड़ेगा, So Mrs. Karim was his client. He was a jeweler. And I think she was visiting him for something, and he said that, oh, my daughter is just sleeping all day, and I'm really worried. And Mrs. Karim was like, send her to me. And I think because she had already been given this brief.
Sleeping all day. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I was quite reluctant. And anyhow, so when I went there, the first thing she was like, we're going to have this. It's very rigorous. And anyhow, she had like things planned for how she was going to turn me into this really, disciplined person. Um, and then I think for me, the best thing was meeting the women who worked there. And that's where I met Naheed, I met Pervez. I think I'm not sure. I think Zeenia was there much later. So were you, Sabine, and I think Nyla, you weren't there. And Uzma, I think we briefly might have. I'm not sure. Yeah. Um, and I think what I saw there was really inspirational because I realized um, Mrs. Karim's feminism was not about giving women a push or necessarily empowering them. It was more about normalizing women in the workplace, you know? Um, yes, she gave us visibility, but she also cultivated this real sense that it wasn't a privilege, nor were we deprived, but it was a right. We had a right to be there. We had a right to earn our own money. We had a right to keep that money. We had a right to prioritize our careers, our work. And of course, that work ethic. I think that work ethic, which initially I despised because I thought it was encroaching upon my freedom, but it is a discipline that I so value now. I think, like Naheed, I agree. Everything that I have achieved in my life, because that discipline would instilled in me, not just through Mrs. Karim, but through Naheed, through Pervez. And I remember Naheed had this no nonsense attitude. You know, I would have all sorts of excuses. Ye ho gaya, wo ho gaya, I can't. And and she was like, and you have to do it. Just do it. I can do it with a kid and this and that, so why can't you do it? So I think that stayed with me. And then Pervez was another editor who had a lot of empathy. And I think that's something that I also really took in that, how do you deal with the crisis at workplace? And yeah, I saw these really, really inspirational women working there. And I think it really shaped the person that I am today.
Yeah, Sabine, I absolutely agree with you, and especially about Parveez, because when I was coming in, she was, taking leave. So, and the little time that I had there with her was really, was I she really inspired me. I mean, yes, we're talking about Ms. Zuhra Karim, who basically selected her, right?
Mm.
But it's also Parveez that, whenever I look at the magazine, I also think of her and her compassion and poise and the way
Mm.
she did what she did. So, absolutely.
Yeah, she really balanced it out, I
Yeah.
think.
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
Yes, they were the yin and yang, maybe. Good cop, bad cop. Uzma, over to you.
Yeah.
Tell us.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yes, I joined She in 2000s, and it was just by chance because I had not studied journalism. I was a BB home economics. But since I had studied in convent and everybody said I was looking for jobs in advertising companies, so someone suggested that you should apply in She. And I remember the write-up that I wrote, it was so childish. I still have it and I laugh and I think, how could Mrs. Karim think that I will be able to be a part of an editorial? But she was my mentor, and yes, she was a hard taskmaster. At the end of the day, people used to say the relationship I had with Mrs. Karim, people used to say you are like husband and wife. When you guys fight, you don't talk, and when you are talking, you're laughing. And she really tapped into my forte, which was entertainment, because since childhood I have been active in theater and all that. So, and she used to bring Indian magazines and always used to say, "Oh, the rubbish that this is, I bought your magazines, you're rubbish." And then she used to laugh. But the best thing about her was that she knew, even if Bollywood is trash or Lollywood is trash, but she knew what was happening in those industries. She would tell me, "Ke bhai, write about this." That was amazing. And she always made me write serious things also. My first article, and when my byline came, it was like, I don't know what is this. And my first serious article was on Kashmir. So it was a very nice time I had. And with her training, I was able to take out my father's magazine, which my father used to take it out in the 60s and the 70s as a travel and tourism magazine, this fortnight in Pakistan. So it was all Mrs. Karim and she that I was able to take out in print also. And then life became digital. The world was one click away. So I shifted to social media. So now I do that on and off, but it's all Mrs. Karim. Yes, she did not teach us marketing. That was very difficult, getting ads. But people at least used to talk to me because I was part of She and because I was with Mrs. Karim. So at least people used to talk to me, but no ads were given. Sometimes they would just say, "Oh, just take the ad," but no money. But yeah, so my journey was, it was a decade-long journey with Mrs. Karim.
True, true. Yeah. That I agree with you about the marketing bit, you know.
Yeah.
But from a publishing point of view, there has been so much learning. Zeenia, are you there? Usma, the two of us, we were there together along with Zeenia.
Yeah, Zeenia, I was with Naheed also, and Parveez. Oh, she was. I was. People kind of darao-fied me that Parveez is very strict and this and that. I was initially so
Really?
afraid of her, and when I interacted, I was like, "Oh, she's not strict. She's nothing
Exactly.
of that
Yeah,
sort."
yeah,
She
absolutely.
told them, "No, bring a diary and bring a pen and be very serious."
Uh, and um Zeenia, are you there?
I used to go with everyone for their assignments.
Okay.
Can you allow
So
me a moment to change
no
the
problem,
place?
no problem, Zeenia. Yes, yes, do that.
Can you tell me if
Um,
my voice is echoing? Because
yeah,
I'm in a room.
yeah,
All right,
it's
then I
echoing.
please allow me a moment. People can carry on the conversation. I'll take for
Yeah,
a couple of
yeah.
sorry.
So coming back to the workplace itself, Sabine, let's start with you regarding the workplace, behind the hockey stadium. Um, how do you remember that? The 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 fragrance, if we can say that. Even if I step into literally some office now, I'm reminded of she. Does that happen to you? Any of you ladies? Sabine? You're on the mute, Sabine.
Sorry, I had a work call earlier. I think what I remember the most is, yeah, the sort of kind of heat, the sense of heat when you walked in. And then I remember the most amazing chai. And I forget the name of the person, the old man with the, skull cap and that sugary tea that he would bring us. And that would be like the highlight of it, at 10 o'clock and 4 o'clock. I'd make sure I'm there for the chai. And I remember Mrs. Francis and the shrill ringing of the telephone. But yeah, it was a very strange place, the circular hockey stadium, and then going up those steps, and then sneaking past Mrs. Karim's office, hoping that she wouldn't see me, that I'm late again, and get the lecture. you know, and then of course being called in and being told that, and actually I think what I do remember is her at the same time instilling a sense of worth inside me, because she would always tell me that, don't waste the talent that you have. And she would always tell me that I'm a good writer. And I think that somewhere, it really gave me confidence that, there was somebody out there who thought that, I have something to give back. And of course, I remember Naheed's children coming to She, and also thinking about, oh, wow, like, you don't have to choose, that sort of thing. So, but I think Naheed would be able to tell you more about the sense of place.
Yeah, definitely. But let's go to Zeenia first. And Zeenia, tell us. You're on the mute.
Hi, I'm sorry for the interruption. I thought I'll go to another room with a better background, but it did not work out. So I think the conversation has kind of
Okay.
advanced, but I'll again go back to our experiences. Am I
We
audible?
can't hear you, Zeenia.
Um,
Now
can
we
you hear
can.
me?
Go on. Yeah,
Oh,
now we can.
okay. So firstly, I was just apologizing for the brief interruption. Um, I know the conversation is kind of advanced, but going back to our, respective experiences, I joined She magazine back in 2000 when I'd freshly graduated from University of Karachi studying economics. And coming from a peculiar background where I was a good reader, but not a very good speaker, like of English language, but good writer, good reader. And I remember that I think even before I completed my graduation, I really, because I was a subscriber of She magazine, so I thought this was the place where I wanted to be. I was like very, very clear. Because I don't know the whole package that She magazine was about, and at that time my consciousness about, women and feminism, etc., wasn't there, but it was just what she was about, so many things and varied interests and like kind of
making visible things that we did not know existed, and giving that kind of perspective again that we did not know existed. There were a number of other magazines also at that time, but she had its own way of presenting information, presenting analysis, which was different from others. You remember there used to be a women's own magazine as well, and both of them were kind
Yes,
of
yes. I think
considered
Sabine
as
also worked. Sabine also worked at Women's Zone, if I'm not mistaken.
I did.
okay. So
I
I remember came in at I was like a very kind of nervous, young person who, I mean, who was very kind of, like awestruck with the whole environment. And when you come to you'll kind of, the first time when you see the office, it's very opposite to what the magazine is, because the magazine had some glamour, had a lot of other kind of substance, with diversity of voices and thoughts. And She magazine's office wasn't particularly representative of the whole bunch that the magazine offered. So it was quite a kind of mixed experience, then meeting her and then becoming a part of and I would totally agree with all of you that how she made us all kind of at least I was a very underconfident person, and everything that she assisted us in making happen, even having our byline written with a very two paragraphs of some update, some write up. It was such a confidence booster. And then slowly and gradually, you would go out in the field, you would talk to people, you would bring in information. And Uzma was with me at that time. Sabin, Muzaffar was also there briefly. And It was a lot of, like first time doing things. We used to go into rickshaws and get the market information, and so she used to appreciate that, even though we did not used to like that too much. But yeah, she used to appreciate that, and so that was kind of very kind of helping with our confidence a lot. I think at the same time, a number of other things were, for example, whatever happens at desks, and a couple of very strong-headed women in editorial positions, uh, kind of trashing your, I wouldn't say like critically looking at your work, or uh, saying something that at that age was difficult to comprehend or difficult to come to terms with. So those are all kind of very, intense experiences that we underwent in that first year when we were at but at the same time, I would, yeah, Sabine, you're right. Billy Auntie, of course, another
just
strong thing
remembered
had to mention. Yeah, you're so right. And I think you were talking about Parveez balancing her out, but at Billy Auntie was also that, that
exactly that bridge.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
just wanted to add that I just remembered that I had so much fun with Billy Auntie. Like I
Yeah.
really connected with her, and we would just, she would just take me and we would sneak out. And especially, I think after Naheed left, and I felt, I don't have like a friend anymore. And then Billy Auntie and I, we would just go, we would have chaat, we would have samosas, we would have juice, we would have
Yeah.
so much
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
I saw Billy
She was
Auntie
a fun
until,
one.
I don't know, until she passed away. She was such an amazing person, such a trailblazer.
So
I
fun.
mean, so unusual for her time. And the relationship between Miss Karim and Billy Auntie. So Mrs. Karim was married once upon a time to Billy Auntie's brother, and
Yeah.
yet, there
Yeah.
was, I mean, so against the culture, the toxic culture we're part of.
Yeah.
They were still best friends. And then there was another, that was why you would remember, there was another lady. I don't remember the one who did advertising, who headed advertising in those days. Again,
Saira?
they
No,
were,
she was in
sorry?
fashion. Saira? No,
No, no,
she was
no,
in
no. I, but there were three older ladies to me at that point, and they were such role models, honestly. Miss Kareem and Billy Auntie, and then I just can't remember. My menopause brain is like, yeah. But oh my God,
She was
that
I
was
just
very
want
that
to add,
pretty.
was
I just want to add one thing. One thing that, I learned from Billy Auntie, and maybe you all did as well. Um, Billy Auntie's motto in life was, it doesn't matter, you know, nothing in life is worth getting seriously upset over, you know? And I think that was something that, really, really impressed me. And I think I try to follow that in life, because she was like,
Me too.
"Kuch bhi ho jaye." Once I remember we were doing a fashion shoot, and I think that bit I started enjoying then. So we were doing a fashion shoot. We had everything ready. It was a jewelry shoot, and we had the photographer, the set, the jewelry, and the model didn't show up. Miss and and anybody else would get like really, but Billy Auntie was unfazed, like nothing could face her. I mean,
And
she
she is
would have.
of the fashion world.
Yeah, but the solution she found was she's like, never mind, you can do it. And she made me do it. And I was like, no, I can't, because in those days, people had some sort of misconceptions and things. I was like, I haven't asked my father, blah, blah, blah. She was like, never mind, we'll
Is
put like a,
Sabin's
what? Yeah. She was like, we'll put like a niqab on you, right? We'll put like a, so she made me do the shoot. And then the next thing I knew, those posters were everywhere in Karachi. And it was my father's rival, right? And we would pass by it, and my father would
Wow.
be like, look at this, blah, 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 and, all this. And I would be like, oh my God, like I'm advertising my father's rival's jewelry, you know?
But
But
you were,
yeah, she
thank
was,
God you were veiled.
yeah, exactly.
Veiled for the right reason.
I know.
Nyla, how was it like you were heading the Lahore bureau. So tell us about that.
Well, the Lahore Bureau, I said, had no office, and now that I'm hearing about these youngsters talking about what was going on, the fun they had in Karachi office, whatever the office was like, I'm getting a bit envious. But anyway, I would work from my house anytime, going out for interviews during those news months. But there's one thing I remember. If any of you remember Zora's editorials, the only time, uh, as I said, she was not one of those fighting feminists going out on the roads. Her editorials carried weight, but they're very gently framed, worded. The only time that I think the only time that she sounded tough in an editorial was when Benazir came to power as the prime minister for the first time. A couple of months later, the line that I remember in the editorial, and I'll never forget it, was this: she's the first woman prime minister of Pakistan. She had a wonderful chance. Stupid woman, she blew it. That was the strongest word I think she ever used. Because those days when people were beginning to feel, women especially, that Benazir is power and is in power, but she's not doing enough for women. And that was when Zora spoke out aloud. So, and it was surprising because nobody had the courage to call Benazir Bhutto stupid in print. That was really something that I remember very well. Otherwise, generally, she left it to me, initially to Muniza, because Muniza was there, and then she left it with me to decide upon what contributions would be coming in from Lahore. So I had a pretty, free hand to do. For example, I would suggest, and I must say, she trusted me. Because once I told her that I wanted to do these literary interviews, so I did a lot of author interviews, and now that I look back, they're an archive. Those authors are not here, like uh, you know, I'll just get the names. Altaf Fatma. Then that and because of those literary interviews, even today, I can talk to anybody with a literary background, and I'm welcomed because those interviews gave me a signature. And Mushtaq Ahmed Yusuf, they were big names. And initially, she never told me that this was a lifestyle magazine. But she never told me that Nyla, no, literature has no place in this man. She welcomed those ideas. I did a lot of interviews. Then I also did a lot of industry interviews like Muhammad Ali and Zeba and things like that. It was exciting for me because even as I was growing older, I had never been into these people's homes and she took it. Then there was another series which I suggested, and she was very open to it. I said, let's do all the old business houses and families of Lahore. We did Haji Karim Baksh, the Hayat furniture people, then Sange Meal, I told you. And now that I think of it, what were those things, what those articles doing in a lifestyle magazine for women? But then gradually, I think Zora also moved on. You might all have guessed. The magazine became more than a woman's magazine, much more than a woman. It started having, it became a brand. It became a brand, not for women only, but for men. Men were reading it. And it would give me so much, it was such a matter of pride when I introduced. By the way, Zuhra Karim gave me my first business card. Uh, Nyla Daud, I was assistant editor then, She Magazine, then of course editor. And it was a very lovable story behind it. One day, my son was about 12 years old when I was assistant editor there. I was cleaning his school blazer, and out of this blazer pocket comes out my business card, Nyla Daud. I said, "Beta, why are you carrying this?" He said, "Me, nobody believes me in school." He was 12 years old. That my mother is an editor of She magazine, and when I showed them that my friend carried it home, and his mother said, "Of course, I read this magazine." I mean, for me, that is one of the best memories of She magazine for me, that I began to be recognized as a journalist because of She magazine. And whatever I later on went off. I'm still with Dawn. So I'm now freelancing. I do a lot of translations, and I don't know if you all know, I'm doing these women-only retreats in my Aptabad cottage. So all this is because of the initial confidence that she gave me. I think I owe a lot to Zora.
Yeah.
I owe a lot.
And I agree with you regarding, you know, she was more than just, uh female focused, fashion and entertainment, because there were really heavy articles. We ran an article on, the Burns unit.
Yes.
Um, and so what this meant was not just, giving space so that everyone could read, but it was giving, letting women also know that, you can read this, and we can, important heavy issues are something that everyone should not just know, but everyone can also read it and understand it, and have a discussion on it. It was not just something that men would be, interested in. Women would be interested in that as well.
See,
Zeenia? Yeah.
Zora was very sorry. Zora
Tina.
was very open to ideas. I remember that those years it wasn't quite the done thing, but they were a generation was growing up in UK and USA, UK more, who were the first born UK young girls, and they were being married back into Pakistan. Zora made me, when I suggested that to her, she said, okay, go and do that article. So I talked to a lot of people about, girl forced marriages and all. Now people are talking about that. I think She Magazine was the first magazine to talk about that. Then another very daring piece I did for her was the abortion racket in Lahore. Um, and she directed me. I went to Temple Road where all these abortion clinics were. So gradually, as I was with her, I also became more courageous. I was ready to go into places where I would never have dreamt of driving into first. But as I said, it's because I had somebody behind me, it's at my back.
Can I say, because I really want to
Yes,
speak to
absolutely.
Nyla. So, Sabine, when we were talking about this today's session, I proposed that we talk about women in journalism and try to link, the experiences of women in
Yes,
journalism.
yes, absolutely.
And prior to coming here today, I spoke to two of my friends who are like active journalists in, media. One is in digital media, the other is with Dawn. So I just want to understand because these are like, they're working, currently they are working, and none of us is kind of working as journalists now. Maybe Uzma is. Uh, so I just want to understand how things are today. And I asked them, tell us like what your experiences are as a woman working in journalism. And what they said, one said that the editor still expects them to, uh, like kind of navigate a male dominated space, like when they go out in the field. The editors are very, very non-sympathetic towards their experiences with a male-dominated, field space. Um, they do not help in any way in making it easy for women. And in fact, she brought that up once, and the editor was like, "अगर आपसे नहीं होता ये, अगर आप ये नहीं कर सकती हैं, तो फिर आपको यहाँ reporter रहने का कोई हक भी नहीं है." I mean, that's how bad he was in today's time. And then there was another woman who works at Geo and digital space, and she was telling me that the editorial, content. There's a woman editor who kind of approves of ideas, etc. And जब वो content ready हो जाता है, it still has to be vetted by a male senior before it is put in the public space. So I think that what I'm like when Nyla was talking and even Sabine said earlier that she normalized women being in journalism, women being at places. And I think the setup that was there at She Magazine, like everybody was a woman. The whole editorial team was a woman, mostly. At least I think from what I remember, it was always this way. Uh, so, a woman bringing up the information, bringing in the information, doing a write up, a woman approving the write up, editorially vetting everything, was all women led. So I think that is kind of things have actually gotten worse rather than becoming better. And that was what she did, that women can, like have ideas, execute them, make them public. The whole setup that she created and ran, that was very, that was a testimony that it can happen and it can work. And unfortunately, it wasn't taken forward. But yeah, so I really wanted to bring that up.
Uzma, would you like to say something?
Yes, I totally agree with Zeenia. That is the case. I moved to the electronic media and I just couldn't stay there. I just worked there for a year or so. It was so terrible. We had three bosses and the male boss. Oh God, it was a terrible experience. So yeah, Mrs. Karim made the whole she thing very siyasat free. We were not bitchy about each other, at least as girls weren't. But
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. I think Naheed, taking cue from what Uzma said, she provided that empowering environment where we were not, as colleagues, we were not pitted against one another, and it boils down to, having that leadership, having that leader that basically offers you that environment to thrive, right, Naheed?
I think she put in a structure where there was a mentor and a mentee. So going back to when I joined, there was Miss Shagufta Alizai. Nyla, you may remember the name, Shagufta Alizai,
Yeah.
because we used to get your, your written material in envelopes. And she was my mentor, really. So, of course, Ms. Kareem was, but then day-to-day basis, I was working with her. And, when we're talking about, Nyla was talking about stories that are not typically in women's magazines. We did so many of those. And we did a piece on drug use. We did a piece on Mazhars in Karachi, actually going into those Mazhars, which was so unusual. And then the red light area that was basically just destroyed, and the women who lived there went all over. So we interviewed those women. Those weren't, that was proper investigative journalism, New airline that came up, AirBlue came up, we interviewed them. So they were not typically women's magazine stories, but we did them because Miss Karim didn't see she as just a women's magazine. It was just a magazine. It was a thinking woman's magazine, I would put it that way. And as far as this mentor-mentee relationship, it just worked because you were taken under their wing, really. And there was no question of being bitchy about each other because we were all learning from each other. And she made sure that didn't happen. So there was an advertising department, and that was our only, and Uzma is nodding again, that was our only sort of, we don't want to deal with them. Because sometimes, a story would be cut short because there had to be a half-page ad there, or the ad just didn't go with the kind of material that we were putting on the page. So that was an issue. But otherwise, I think I don't know how Miss Karim did it, but the general environment, the work environment was so positive, and it was so female, and yet there was no sign of bitchiness and infighting. If Miss Karim was here in the Pakistan today, the way it's deteriorated, I haven't lived in Pakistan for the last 20 years, but I go there like every month. My parents are there, and I can see the general deterioration of everything, literally. So I don't know if she would still want to run she in that environment. But yeah, she somehow managed to run an organization based on female positive energy.
Sabine,
Zeenia mentioned,
yeah, Uzma, go on.
yeah, Zeenia mentioned Sharla. Sharla was such a nice colleague. Me and Zeenia
Nyla ke
used to look
pata.
forward. Yeah, Sharla Fateh. We used to look forward for her to come, and then we would go in her car for product photography, which, by the way, I hated the product photography section. But it was like we needed to get out of this jail called she.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we
She used to take
really
us
needed
out for
to
lunch. Yeah,
yeah. And
yeah.
Shaila taught us PR. She used to say PR, the art of PR, you have to learn the art of PR. Though you will die doing PR, but you have to do it. So she
She was
taught us the
actually
art.
a mirror to Mrs. Karim. She was also like Mrs. Karim, and they used to have a lot of clashes as well. So, but
Yeah.
they wouldn't live without each other either. So, yeah, great working with
And
her.
I used to fight with Mrs. Karim. She was like that.
But you know,
I think one general theme just came to me. The place where the office, I think it represented the oppressive society and a subversive element working within those confines. Now, in retrospect, that's what I think those confines were like, and such brilliant work literally came out of that.
exactly.
Sabine, do you have what do you say to that?
Yeah, I actually never thought of it as a woman's magazine, even though that is the tagline, and it's literally called She. But yeah, again, it's that thing that Mrs. Karim and all the amazing women who worked there was never the sense of being the other, this idea that women are the other and male is the universal, and we are the exception. There was never that sense. So I feel like, and especially because I was there when I was so young, and then, I left, and I moved abroad. Um, I think I always had the sense that this is a very universal magazine. This is a space for everything. There's space for politics, for literature, for everything. And I also remember that it was the first place where I started writing fiction because I think we had another brilliant editor, Najma. I can't remember her last name. I don't know if anyone else remembers. Was it Najma Sadiq? Maybe. Yeah.
Yes.
Hajma Sadiq,
Um,
yeah.
Yeah, and she told me that, you write very creatively. Have you tried writing fiction? And I wrote a short story and she really liked it. And this was a time when I think Mrs. Karim was on vacation or something, and she published my first short story, and it gave me such a sense of confidence, so it was like like everyone's saying, there was no sort of competition or rivalry. It was a place to thrive. It was a place for experimentation, place for really feeling that there is space for everyone. Everyone is welcome. Yes, of course, um, uh, Mrs. Kareem was a hard taskmaster, as everyone has said. But yes, at the same time, she wasn't a sort of divide and rule or, political intrigues kind of person. Everything was very direct, everything was very open. And I think because it was my first workspace, I think I figured that that's how every place is, or I think, and like the others are saying, it's only when you go out in the world and you realize, oh, every place is not like that, But I think for me, um, I think that attitude stayed with me. And I think even now, I really believe in sort of like helping others or being there for people, because I think it really shaped me as a person and as a professional as well, learning from all these amazing women that, there was room for everyone. There's not one single slice of cake. The whole cake is there. You know?
Absolutely. Um, we are at the end of our session. So, any last words, Nyla?
All I would like to say is that in those days, always Pakistan, there have been magazines, women's magazines also. Women's Own was the English one, but there were Urdu digests and all. But now that I look back, they all followed one simple pattern. The She magazine never followed a pattern. It was a progressive magazine. Whether Zora did it deliberately or because she got a team or whatever, but when I look back, the magazine, even in the years that I joined, it had really moved up as far as issues and topics are concerned, as far as advertisement was concerned. It was a very progressive. I mean, there was no standing still for the magazine. Every month you could see some excitement, something new, even a little tiny point, a new ad or something. There was always that. And I'm so glad that I was a part of it because I said those were the years when women, the most empowerment thing that women were going through was that there were some women who were pitting women against men. Zora never did. I never got that feeling. I was given my own dignity, my space as a woman in a changing Pakistan scenario, but I never felt that I was fighting any man. I was getting into my own, and I think you all must have felt that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Naheed, any last words?
Well, nothing after what Nyla has said, basically. Yeah, she just, yeah, never got the feeling that it was anti-men. It was just, as Sabine said, it was for everyone. And there was enough to go around. And yeah, just this whole normalization of women having their own life, having a purpose in life, besides, getting married and having children and the way our culture and tradition has taught us, and earning my own money. Honestly, that whole idea of running a business, and I'm running a business now, and many ideas come from the way Ms. Kareem ran her business, how she hired people, how she treated people. So that never goes out of date, even if it's 30 years ago. I think those values still remain.
Absolutely. Sabine?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, what came out were these sort of lifelong friendships, female friendships, and the value of those female friendships, which I think was cultivated in that space where everybody, there was space for everyone. There was room to grow, whether you wanted to do, investigative journalism, or whether you just wanted to do something creative, whether you wanted to do fashion, lifestyle, or, something else. So yeah, and I think the discipline and the self-worth that Mrs. Karim cultivated in all of us, whether it came through being a hard taskmaster, whether it came through, being flexible to other people's needs. Yeah, I think we need more spaces like that.
Absolutely. Uzma?
Yeah, for Mrs. Karim, she was a mentor. And to think that she took out this magazine when the field of journalism, and it was a man's world to be so, she took out it at that era when hardly there were women in this field. And may God bless her soul. And whatever I have become today, I took out my own magazine. That is all because of her. And it was a very nice journey with Mrs. Karim. May God bless her soul.
Zeenia?
Thank you. And Sabin, I must thank you for organizing this. Now that we are all here, it feels so amazing to be, reconnecting on this particular point, which actually brought us all together and this is how we got to know each other. And I agree with Sabin that we became friends, all of us. I also want to emphasize the business side of things that you all actually talked about. But I do think that we should appreciate that, you know, uh, making an entity a business, making it profitable, making it survive. I think it takes a lot. And at the same time, not letting the core of it, not compromising on the core values, on, the ethics and what it stood for. I think Mrs. Karim was never not clear about what she was about. She magazine was about. And even if we would deviate from it in some way while doing our stories, or the advertising section which used to bring in money, I think however way she dealt with us and those people, but she never compromised on the core value of she. At the same time, she made she a functional business which kept on running, even though there must be so many challenges. And I think that we all used to have a grudge against her for not paying us well enough. We all would think that we used to deserve more, but I now appreciate she had business to run, and it wasn't that she was, that multimillionaire and we were some poor people. It was kind of, she's trying to balance things out. So I want to appreciate that. And just one parting word that, I mean, you all said how She magazine shaped you. I think I would also like to add that the proofreading was what has shaped me actually, because it's
Oh my God, yes, yes. I was a bad proofreader, but
yeah.
that was the benchmark.
Exactly. And like you have to look back at your actions. Even 5 minutes after you've said something or done something, you really have to think about what you've done and maybe try to fix it. Sometimes we come back and say sorry for what we have done, or retract a month later. So proofreading is what that has taught us. And Mrs. Karim used to be a terrorizing proofreader, like really wanted us to be very careful about everything, every full stop, every comma. So I think that's what she has instilled in me, at least. So yeah.
Absolutely. I think, and I hope I'm not being pompous in saying that, but I think her legacy runs, the legacy of she and her legacy as a publisher runs through all of us. And whatever we do, that is what her legacy is all about an empowered publishing platform, and by extension, the journalists, the writers, the authors, the editors, the proofreaders, and how we are and what we are doing today. There's something of she in our DNA, and which is basically how we are running our things. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming on board. And, I can't believe, all of you, this is like a, dream team coming together. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
for
for organizing this.
lovely
Thank you.
seeing all
Thank you,
of you.
Sabyn,
Thank you.
for bringing us
Bye-bye.
together.